Yo, what it do, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. This is Phantom Frequency, where we dive into the entire multiverse of pop culture. If you dig the vibe, if you want to show some love for the channel, click those buttons below the video. But with no further ado, we're going to get right into this thing, man. And it's Andor, Season 2, Episodes 4 through 6. No big intro there. We're going to get right into it. And honestly, I enjoy these few episodes a lot more than the last arc, that is for sure. But I would still say overall, the very initial fourth episode, the first one of this kind of second part, was a little bit slow going for me. I still think I have a little bit of an issue with the overall pacing of the story, and I don't necessarily think Cassian's actual storyline is the most interesting of the bunch right now. I actually think a lot of the things going on with Mon Mothma and a lot of the things going on, even with Bix, but more so with the overall Empire right now, and with the rebellion, what's going on with Deidre and everything's getting set up to go to the planet Gorman, so that way they can get the power source that actually can power the Death Star for what we know, and we know they're going to get early on in the process of achieving knowledge of the fact that they're making the Death Star and that they got to get the plans for it and whatnot. And that's the whole entire kind of catalyst of what is going on right now in this initial arc. I mean, the second arc of the season. And like I said, overall, this show has been technically well done the entire time. Tony Gilroy and the team have done a fantastic job at really fully realizing the world of Star Wars while bringing some new kind of elements to it, making it feel a bit more Blade Runner, a little more alien, you know what I mean, in the sense of the overall sci-fi kind of aesthetic to some of the newer locations mixed in with some of the older locations like Yavin 4 in the first three episodes, and with getting into Coruscant once again and kind of using CG to only enhance the look of Coruscant and make it look even bigger, and bolder than it has ever looked before, in my personal opinion. And it's been really well realized since the prequels, and maybe even a little bit improved upon. And I think the overall dialogue, the acting, all that jazz is so damn good in this freaking season, and hasn't missed a step since the first season as well. That's the one element that's carry over for me no matter what. But like I mentioned earlier in there, the fifth and sixth episode definitely gets a lot more interesting in the fact of you got Vel Sartha and her girlfriend, what's her name, Cinta, and you got them kind of going into the whole rebellion angle and them kind of rising up and kind of making a big play to kind of get things going. And that's the whole catalyst for Cinta eventually getting killed by this one guy that's also in the rebellion, and he ends up shooting her by mistake when he has a whole struggle with this other guy when he has a blaster, when he wasn't supposed to bring one to the mission to begin with. And when all that goes down in episode 6, you know what I'm saying, Vel gets really pissed at him after after her girl is shot in the crossfire and dies, and completely lays into him and really rips him a new one, man. And that scene was so powerful, and you understand both sides of that conflict, because obviously he didn't mean to do that, but he also made a very big error in bringing the blaster to begin with, and ended up almost fucking up, if pretty much not fucking up, the whole mission altogether. And like this, and this is the rise of the Empire. We're a few years into this thing, and the stakes are higher than ever, and every single mission is extremely important to them, ultimately being able to overcome this conflict and be able to take the Empire out and start to, at least, well, not take the Empire out, but at least begin to rise and resist against the Empire, and actually being able to create a strong rebellion. Luthen and Andor are having all these disagreements as well over what to do about Gorman, and it becoming kind of a place for tons of violence and tragedy to occur, in order to kind of spark the fire big enough for everyone to see the real issue going on with the Empire and want to go up against them and really get all in on this movement, right? But Andor says, at what cost are we doing this? You know what I'm saying? Because Gorman is the target right now, having the power source for the Death Star, the Empire trying to rule over it with an iron fist, willing to enact genocide to do so. And once we get into that third act, we're definitely going to be discussing that. And man, it's a pretty intense setup for what is to come, and that is one of my more favorite elements of this, is really seeing the inner workings of the rebellion, getting to see the inner workings of the Empire, and getting to see Tony Gilroy in the writing, really start cooking and really getting this conflict to kind of boil up at the surface and start to come at this exact time, you know what I mean? And the way that that builds up really makes a little bit of the slower pacing of this first half of the season really pay off a lot more for me, at least in my personal opinion. I thoroughly enjoyed that last couple episodes, especially the 6th episode. I thought really picked up, really became edge of your seat stuff the entire rest of the time. But like I said, and I mentioned earlier in the video, one of my few complaints really of this, besides the overall pacing, is the fact that I feel like Andor's storyline, Cassian Andor's storyline, over the course of these first 6 episodes has been the most least interesting storyline of all of them. And I understand a little bit of what they're going for, trying to establish him as kind of that reluctant hero and put him into and he's always kind of been that since his ultimate setup in Rogue One back in 2016. So I think this whole character arc and kind of archetype that he really fits into, and this kind of push and pull into the rebellion, does make sense for his character, and I think ultimately is paying off in such a strong way overall, and especially as the second half kicks off with episodes 7 through 9. I think it really does come to a head, but I just feel like in the way that they're structuring it in these first 6 episodes, primarily the first 3 more so than this 3, is I just feel like he's kind of falling into a repetitive pattern and isn't doing anything that kind of affects the overall kind of thing going on with the rebellion and the overall Star Wars universe, and it feels a little bit inconsequential, other than the fact that a lot of the people he's dealing with and a lot of the things going on around him and the people that he's ultimately going to become connected to play a very huge integral role into that. And that's even one of the things where Mon Mothma's storyline and getting into all that stuff with the actual political side of things and really getting that Game of Thrones vibe in the Star Wars universe is really the stuff in this particular section of the season, in these 3 episodes, that I enjoy the most, and getting to see how she's getting fed up with all the things going on and having to, play all these political games with all these people and all these like listening devices, and ultimately everyone getting bugged, and them kind of seeing just how big the stakes really are, and ultimately what they have to do and what they're going to have to sacrifice and risk in order to really become the resistance within the system and outside of the system to take down the system that is ultimately becoming a fucking regime that is ultimately a dictatorship. You know what I'm saying? Isn't good for the galaxy. And that's the stuff that really comes together in this part of the season that I think completely just kind of saves the show, other than the rebellion stuff going on. And like I said, even though the Andor stuff going on, the actual stuff with Cassian isn't as interesting, this stuff with Mon Mothma actually kind of carries a little bit more of my interest in this particular section of the season, in this particular season in general, I will say. You know what I'm saying? But it does really pay off with some really great things in that 6th episode, and I think overall is a very strong arc, and it does seem like the show is definitely getting better and better as it's going along. So for me, overall, this is a damn good season so far, but not quite as good as season 1. So in that regard, does that mean that it's a bad season? Absolutely not. I'm still enjoying it overall, not necessarily thoroughly quite yet, but I am enjoying this season overall, and I'm starting to see a lot more of the dominoes they're setting up to kind of topple over in this second half to ultimately tee Andor up with K2SO and all that stuff to come. I think is really going to come through in this second half of the season. But I want to hear what y'all think about these latest, or not the latest, but the last 3 episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Andor season 2. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you fall somewhere in between like myself? I always want to hear y'all's opinions out there. We got some other fun videos coming at y'all. We got Andor's episodes 7 through 9 coming at y'all this week as well. And I'm finally going to be getting into a whole spoiler review and breakdown of Thunderbolts, aka the new Avengers. Spoiler alert right there. Going to give you my whole spoiler-filled thoughts, all the breakdowns and Easter eggs that I was able to kind of see myself and pick up online and all that stuff. We're going to get into a whole breakdown and discussion. That should be up on the channel by Friday the latest. And then, we got some cool retro stuff coming up real soon as well. And there's some really fun releases around the corner here in May and June. So we got a lot of really dope stuff planned for the channel. Thank you so much for sticking around to the very end of the video. And until next time, make sure you stay safe out there. Much love, and we'll catch you on the next one.